just to weigh those two options and help me decide how to pick between the two.
Yeah, very good question. So I really compare this to, for example, taking First Strike or Aery on Zindra or First Strike or Aery on Victor. So there's a few questions that I ask myself in this process.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, we're gonna be purely looking at the lane. So the first step is the lane. Step one is lane. So if we play against a Talon or a Kiana, we can decide to scale, we can decide to bully lane, and both setups are fine. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So we don't suffer on either one of the setups.
I think it's not that we won't suffer; it's that we will win lane significantly less hard
Okay,
if we take the first strike setup.
but we won't get punished or bullied.
No,
Okay,
even at worst, I think.
even at worse. Okay, so in that case, we can focus purely on ourselves if we are playing against a champion that doesn't mess us up too hard. So in those cases, right, we go to step two. Let's make this one blue. So if we're not playing against the strong laner, so weak laner is blue, then we can actually decide, okay, what is our role in the game? So if we are playing with, for example, a Kindred or a Kayn, right, it would be nice to get early priority and to start dominating the lane. Because we can snowball through a Kindred or through a Kayn while these guys are invading. Or if we have a Draven Blitzcrank versus Naughty or versus Rel Samira, right? When we see that on bot lane, or we see Yorick Aurelia Tryndamere on top lane. These are snowballing lanes. So the game is going to be sided very early on because the one that's going to be ahead is going to be snowballing. In those cases, I would say we take an early game rune because that way we can use our mid pressure to translate our lead towards any one other of our teammates. All right. So if this is not the case, if we are playing with a passive farming jungle, our bot lane is kind of safe. We have got Ezreal Karma. The enemy team has Sivir Lulu. Oh, crazy champions. Top lane is like tank matchup. Jungle is just chilling, you know? In those games, it doesn't matter if we have early prio or not, usually. So in those cases, we can actually go first strike and skill up. Because then we're going to be stronger against these champions in the mid to
Mm-hmm.
late game.
Okay.
So now we're going to actually apply the same principle. But now we're going to be playing against stronger laners. So do we suffer against stronger laners if they take a lane setup rune and we take first strike? Do they beat us?
This is typically the case with like Aery, Oriana, where what rune setup they take is it massively influences how my lane goes.
Okay,
I can't beat most Ori lane bully setups with first strike, but
okay,
I can beat them if I take my stronger laning setup.
okay. So against those champions, right, we have to always assume the worst. The worst situation for us is they take lane bully setup. So they take
Mm-hmm.
lane setup,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if we do not assume the worst right here, then what's going to happen is these guys are going to beat us in the lane. We are going to lose all priority and we are going to lose all agency in the game. And we want to have agency, especially on a champion like Fiddlesticks, where if we are ahead, it's a very dangerous champion because we can abuse vision. But if we are behind and we lose vision on the map, we're actually just in a bit of a rough position. So against these strong early laners, I want you to ask yourself the question, right? Can I get away? Can my team get away with me taking a scaling oriented setup? So is it okay if I lose down 10 CS and I give priority for the entire first 10 minutes against Ori or Victor, right? Which is then probably going to be the case. Or if the enemies have Kindred Oriana, right, where Kindred wants to invade, we cannot ever give Ori 10 minutes of priority because Kindred is going to completely take over the game. Right? So we got to understand what the effect is of the setup that we take.
How do I balance that with, okay, let's say I guessed wrong and they don't take a lane setup, and now their mid is scaling, or
Yep.
don't close out the game and we get in trouble.
Okay, that's a good question. So in my opinion, we should always assume the worst. The worst possible situation is that we lose control of the early game, we lose control of the lane, and we therefore lose control of the game without being able to impact it. That's like the worst case scenario. So what happens if these guys do indeed? We're going to go to situation 4 right here. Let's take a nice red color. Situation 4. That's not a nice red color, but I guess this one might be nicer. All right. So situation 4 is we take lane, enemy takes scaling.
Mm-hmm.
And you're scared of this situation, right? I think
I
we
mean,
should not be scared of
hypothetically,
this
it's happened.
situation.
Okay.
Because right now, what's going to happen is the agency is completely on us. Because we got the stronger early lane setup. So, based upon how well we play, the game is in our hands. And that's exactly what we want. We want the game to be in our hands. So we might throw, we might not be able to close the game out, but there's a hell of a lot of learning in those 20, 30 minutes of the game that we can massively improve upon as a player compared to if we lose control of the game and the game just goes by and it's just jungle gap, Kindred invaded, we couldn't do anything against it. That's the learning. So I'd much rather have that we have control, that we make mistakes ourselves, and that we learn from it in these games.
So then tell me, why does anyone take first strike then? Like, why do I even have this problem? If we're all thinking this way, then how do I end up against so many first strike Syndra, so many first strike Victor, so many first strike Zeds? Is this a mistake on their part based on what you're saying? And I should always look to try and punish these games early and,
Good
you know,
question. So I think first of all, like a lot of these players just don't know what to do. Like until you reach around master, maybe like 300 LP, people just don't even know how to bully a lane. They're clueless.
okay,
It might even be 600 LP, right? People are just clueless. But once you get to that point, people really start to understand how to take advantage of a lead. And not only the laners, but also the junglers understand it. And then
okay,
you'll get smacked for it. That's
okay.
the real time where you get punished.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, they're able to. I'm facing a lot of these first strike setups because they're not getting punished at this elo.
They're not getting punished, and they don't know how to punish other people with Aery as well. It's just
Okay.
they make too many mistakes to actually punish someone. So that's the first reason. I think the second reason is because people don't know you're playing Fiddlesticks mid. So what they see right here is they see probably Fiddlesticks jungle, Yorick mid, the Rengar top. And if I'm playing Victor against Yorick mid, I'm also taking first strike.
Got it.
Right? Because it's just a safer, more scaling option in this
Makes
position. So yeah, I think this is the thought process in a nutshell.
that sounds good.